Do we need our theme song? That was what we're...
Jeopardy.
Okay, we're on. Good evening. Welcome to the Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting of Monday, August 26, 2013. We'll start with Town Administrator David Williams reading us the proposed agenda here. David, if you would.
Thank you. The first item would be vote to approve or amend the agenda, and there is one change we want to point out. 6:05 p.m. public comment, 6:10 we're going to talk about the transfer station improvements and also CM&D project updates. 6:30 consideration of a one-day liquor license for Sherborn Historical Society and a separate event for the Library Board of Trustees. And that's the correction on your agenda. It's listed as Friends of the Sherborn Library. It's actually Library Board of Trustees.
Okay.
The 6:40, consideration of 2014 annual town meeting dates. 6:45, consideration of signing election warrant. 6:50, consideration of appointment of a ZBA alternate, Richard Novak. 6:55, consideration of a consent agenda involving 2 selectmen minutes and approval of warrant number 8 and setting the next meeting as September 12th. And then at 7 o'clock, administrative reports and selectmen reports. And these times are estimates only and items may be taken out of order.
Okay, and so for amendments to the agenda, I know that we wanted to add an executive session at the end, not to return to public session. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll add that. Any other amendments, gentlemen?
I understand there's going to be a discussion about a street in town.
How are you
Well,
handling?
I arranged with Mr. Dacier to comment at public comment.
So he's all taken care of.
He
For
will
now.
be on next. Yes.
Okay, good. So we'll get to you, Mr. Dacier. Any other amendments? Mike, you're good?
Can't think of it.
Thanks. Okay, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda as amended with the executive session. Second, all in favor? Great. All right, so we're off and running. To public comment. Are there any public comments here? Mr. Dacier, please.
Good evening. Yes, public comment. My name is Paul Dacier. I live at 92 Woodland Street. I would like to raise to the Board of Selectmen the untenable traffic situation on Woodland Street. This matter has continued to deteriorate from and after the time that I gave notice to the Town Traffic Safety Committee in January 2012. The situation is as follows. We have a constant stream of 18-wheel trucks and vehicles engaging in cross traffic, that is between routes 16 and 27. We have none of the drivers of these vehicles driving at the posted speed limits. We have personally witnessed situations of having to jump into the woods or get off the road because of speeders and people deliberately trying to hit pedestrians. We do not have anyone on that street, which is a heavily residential area, walking that with children without being in fear of their safety or person. I have proposed to the Town Traffic Safety Committee a number of remedies. Those remedies include banning all cross traffic, banning 18-wheel trucks or trucks over 2.5 tons or some other defined amount, having the roads open to local residents only, also having posted signs with speed bumps. In each of these instances, I will say that the Town Traffic Safety Committee has listened to these proposals and has not taken any formal action in this regard. But the Traffic Safety Committee did agree to have a proposal that was voted upon at the town meeting to have monies allocated for a study of the redesign of the intersections at Woodland Street and Mill Street and Woodland Street and West Goulding. This is a good step in the right direction, but nothing has happened since the town meeting. But I do feel that these proposed remedies that I've also mentioned are within the purview, that is within the power of the Town Traffic Safety Committee and the Board of Selectmen to implement. Through my own research with the State Highway Administration Manual, it is clearly something within the power of the town, as I mentioned with these two bodies, to implement restrictions. In fact, there's other precedent for this. If you drive into Holliston, Ashland, Natick, Southborough, Wellesley, and Newton, and numerous other towns in this area, there are the restrictions that I have mentioned. I think it's important that the town, the regulatory body, which is the Board of Selectmen, undertake an immediate action to task the town administrator and the town traffic safety committee to implement some or all of these recommended remedies. Because I do feel that there's a dangerous situation that will get worse. We have already had a fatality in the area. We've had numerous car accidents. We've had numerous instances where the police have stopped people for an inordinate amount of speeding. I will also add that this is not a criticism of the police. The police are very good at what they do, and they have town-wide responsibilities. But there seems to be a lack of focus by the ultimate regulator, that is the Board of Selectmen and others here, as to the overall traffic situation in the town, most notably on Woodland Street. I would also add that I do know that there has been a fair amount of focus on Western Avenue and the traffic situation there. I do feel they've had an inordinate amount of focus. They've been treated in a manner that is disparate to others, and I think that is actionable and should be stopped. So I would ask that, again, that the town Board of Selectmen immediately undertake certain requirements by others to work to alleviate the situation forthwith. Thank you.
Well, thanks for your comments. I think where we're at on this is for David to do some fact-finding about what's going on. And we'll set another agenda item. Might ask for you to come back to share more of this information with us, and we'll see where we're at. I think at this point, unless you gentlemen
Peter, can I have a little
anything.
follow-up on this?
Absolutely.
Thanks. A couple questions. One is I would be interested in hearing from Rick in terms of what's being done as far as traffic enforcement down there. And secondly, Mr. Desir, I just going back in history, probably 15 or so years ago, this issue arose, and there was a change to the intersection at Route 16 and Woodland Street, which slowed things down at that end of the street, but apparently not for the rest of the street. I know there was a discussion at the time about trying to ban cross-traffic, and my understanding was that the federal law, the Interstate Commerce Commission restrictions require that you have at least some routes open to trucking across town. If I remember correctly, that was the issue that kind of stymied the types of solutions you're talking about in terms of a full truck ban or local traffic only type of solution. And I don't know if you've looked into that. Maybe David can look into that.
Well, I haven't seen the federal regulation in that regard. I did look at the state manual, and it makes no reference to the federal regulation in this regard.
I have something here. We appropriated some money for this street at the town meeting, and it was part of the override. And then we had a meeting which we went through all of the items, and we had a discussion about the expenditure of those funds. Where are we on that?
I haven't made any movement on Woodland. I don't know if Ed wants to speak of anything.
Well, I was trying to avoid too much tonight because it's not an
Right.
agenda item, if we could.
I mean, the
And
first
get
step-
some more facts. I think, Paul, your questions and your questions are both relevant. I think Mr. Desir's asked these questions a number of times, and he's
Right.
still coming back asking the questions, so we're not obviously answering those questions well enough.
Right.
And I think we need to.
Well, I want to see us getting going. If we have the money and it was approved at town meeting, we have the support of the voters, we have the support of the residents, let's go forward. And
That's
so if
right.
you don't want to discuss it now, but
No,
at some point.
I mean, I
I'm
think
gonna-
you're asking, I have in my notes, Paul, for when David talks to us later, just the status of things like this, including the Pine Hill Road and access, emergency access. Just to give us an update on where we're at with these various capital items. So
Right.
I was gonna ask that question. I don't know, he's obviously got nothing to report so far on this particular capital item.
I haven't done anything on
Right.
this.
But Rick, yeah, it would be helpful.
Sure, to answer your question, Mr. Giammo, we had deployed our traffic board to Woodland Street to collect data on the times where speeding was most likely to occur. And based on the data that we collected, we deployed directed patrols and speed enforcement to Woodland Street during those peak hours. So that was one of the initiatives that we provided for the residents of Woodland Street. But as I explained to Mr. Dace here, and I've explained to the town over and over again, we've got 2 patrol cars patrolling the entire town. We've got other responsibilities, and we unfortunately cannot commit a single cruiser to one road for the entire program.
And we also know, we found out from Ed here where we're at, I think there was some talk of some stop signs going in at one or more of the intersections. I don't know that anything's been done there. So I think if your questions continue and they remain unanswered, and we're the ultimate buck stopping location here. So we need to get some fact finding, I think, before we can respond well enough from my company.
Thanks for coming in, though.
Thank you, appreciate it. Are there any other public comments? Well, Elliot had his hand up first, and then get to you, Susan. Yes, sir.
Comment on your putting in speed bumps. We do not want speed bumps in the town of Sherborn. We want our roads velvet smooth, so these trucks don't go crashity boom, crash, boom, boom, as they go through our town. I don't think the speed bumps are gonna slow down these trucks one smidgen. And we have the noise pollution and the seismic pollution from these vehicles hitting speed bumps. So my comment is, for those who have lived in Sherborn for over 50 years or more, I just want to report, my sister Harriet Taylor died 2 weeks ago. So much for that. She went to sleep on Monday night. I was beside her, and I walked out of the room. The next morning, I got a call saying she didn't wake up Tuesday morning. May we all be so lucky. But, so, thank you for...
So sorry.
Condolences on it.
Now, for many years, I've been saying, get rid of the bark mulch around the trees. And this has fallen on deaf ears. And a month ago, Friday, July 26th, in the Daily News, there was an article, Tree Tips, and it says, don't put bark mulch against trees. It causes diseases and it causes bark rot. So the moisture comes and stays in the bark mulch. The living bark on the trees rots and you'll kill the trees. So I'll say again, please, please, please get that damn bark mulch away from the trees. So much for that.
Thanks for sharing.
Can we give this to Ed Wagner?
Yeah.
I got it.
Keep in mind,
Some more copies here for you.
hopefully we won't have this issue raised again. Maybe a solution is to keep the bark mulch away from the trees. Thank you, Ellen. Yes, in the back of the room.
Yeah, I'm Susan Taylor, Western Ave. Having been away for a couple of weeks, I just returned, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Ed Wagner yet. I'd like to know what's happened to the street signs for Western Avenue. Is it one way to discourage anybody from using it? We took down the signs and say Western Avenue.
No idea.
So,
That's a question for,
and given
Ed
the budget
Dave.
and reading how much is there, I think we can afford some new signs. Thank you.
thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move along. Transfer station improvements. Do you want to take the lead on that with Ed sitting in the hot seat?
Sure. Ed, do you want to come up?
Okay, Ed? Hot seat. You're in it. Thanks for coming in, by the way, Ed. Thank you. I know you'd rather be somewhere else.
That's not true.
He's a good liar, isn't he?
What a diplomat.
It's the seat of glory, not the hot seat.
That's right. There you go.
This,
Remember that, Paul. Yes, go ahead.
the 2013 town meeting approved $80,000 for the purpose of an overlay at the transfer station, replacement of containers and replacement of the failing fence up there. Since then, we started looking at a possible drainage project before we do the overlay. And Ed and I put together a memo and sent that out to to you guys with your packets. I don't know if you had a chance to read them.
I
Read
did.
it.
Yep.
Looks like we all did.
Okay. The, basically, the cost to do an in-depth project where the drainage would be designed, installed, and then an overlay, I'm sorry, a top coat done is $113,000. So we were originally thinking that some of the money that was available to the recycling committee for the purchase of the containers, we would purchase less containers and maybe hold off on the fence or something. We would divert that money over to doing this bigger project so that the new pavement that goes down would last longer than just the overlay. I received a town council opinion on the word overlay and the use of that article, whether it could be used for another purpose, and I pitched the two projects to them, and they turned around and consulted with bond counsel, and bond counsel and town council concurred that we could not use the existing authorization to use for a larger project at the transfer station. So in my memo, I explained that, and basically the two options that I see are to call a fall special, and you may see other options, to call a fall special town meeting for the purpose of updating or replacing the existing language with new language and request the additional appropriation needed to do the full project, or continue with the project as it was approved by town meeting, which is simply an overlay of the pavement over the existing surface with an unknown life expectancy, and have the comprehensive project ready to be brought to town meeting at a future date once we see how the overlay is evaluated.
Just before you go, Paul, on that, I would say a third option is to continue patching until a spring town meeting. That would be the third option worth exploring. But Paul, please go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. The option that I would favor is, first of all, doing the project right. To do the project right means we can't use the current funds. We have to do it next year. I'm not in favor of calling a special town meeting just for one item. That's expensive. So we've already patched it. I've already asked the questions about whether or not we're in compliance with our DEP
Right.
mandates for that area, let's call it that way. I'm picking my words carefully here.
Yes.
And I was told we are in compliance and that the potential sources of water getting into any deposited waste is effectively capped. And as long as we maintain the cap, as our chair just mentioned, we're fine. So why not we wait? Go to town meeting with the additional request that the $80,000 that's already been approved be transferred to this purpose, and an additional $30,000 be allocated to it, and then do it correctly next summer.
Okay. The only thing that, instead of holding on the full 80, where there was authorization to replace containers and the fencing, should those projects proceed?
Yeah, so we might be coming, Paul, for
Instead of 30?
for another 80 on top of the 50, I think is what we were projecting for this capping, or 55 or something. Because she needed close to 30 for the fencing and the containers or something.
Yeah.
So whatever that pieces are, I think that
Yeah, I
containers
accept
and
that
fencing,
as,
yeah.
let's do the fencing and the containers this year.
Yeah. And
You can maintain the cap, the
the pavement-
pothole.
It'll be an additional cost out of my budget that I didn't anticipate for asphalt and labor.
But you've already
I
done
can-
some pothole repairs
Yes.
just recently, and my take is that those are holding well enough, and were done well enough, so the surface is certainly safe for traffic and so forth.
Yes, the potholes seem to just pop in waves. There's no
Yes.
rhyme or reason to how long, which ones are lasting, but we'll definitely keep an eye on it.
But the other issue was the concern about the cap itself, and the testing that you did do just recently
Mhm.
shows that there's sufficient surface there to be not so worried about.
Right, there's a compacted base adequate enough to build a thicker,
The thick roadway.
reclaim what's there and build a thicker
Yeah, so I
surface.
think that's good. Any thoughts,
No,
Mike?
my only question is that this is a service that probably should pay for itself, or at least partly pay for itself, and I think a longer-term
That's a big
discussion
urge for us.
is how we recover the costs of capital improvements to this facility, as well as whatever, contracts we have with vendors who support that facility.
We've had an
Pretty-
ongoing,
Particularly, having heard anecdotally about out-of-town vehicles using that facility and so forth. That either shouldn't be happening, or we should be getting tipping fees for that.
Right.
we've also, the board historically has had a number of discussions about pay-as-you-throw as a means of stimulating recycling, and we've had a number of discussions with the chair of the recycling committee about that, who one time was against it, and one time was in favor of it. Now I'm not sure where she's at. But pay-as-you-go is a program that the state is pushing and pressuring communities to adopt, because it effectively jumps the recycling rate.
Well, I think it
significantly.
solves- Yeah, I think pay-as-you-throw solves a whole bunch of problems that we're dealing with down there.
And it brings in a revenue stream.
That's right.
Yeah, so
I
that-
think
that's something for
we'll put that on
further
a future
discussion.
agenda. I think we're all in agreement that's a good topic of discussion of how to make the transfer station more economically viable, and also make sure people who shouldn't be there aren't there.
The first thing I was going to do is try to re-up the existing contract, go through it with Ed and Carol and see what things need to be improved on it. And I talked to Ron at the transfer station about getting rolling on that, and actually have a signed contract in place, as it's expired right now, and then put some real enforcement things in that contract and try to watch it more closely so that there is closer compliance with what's agreed on.
So
I
when
think
you're
that-
ready for an agenda item on this whole topic, we should be after that. That makes good sense.
But could I make a motion on the subject that is on the agenda?
Sure.
Which is that we proceed with the fencing and containers. We hold on the paving, ask the big paving overlay, that we, at the annual town meeting, seek the appropriate funding to do the job correctly, as our engineers are telling us, and the CM&D superintendent is telling us, and that we request the CM&D to maintain whatever potholes might arise between now and the time that we can complete this project.
Sounds good. That's your motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor? Terrific. Problem solved. One
No
more item
problem.
off the list. Okay. Next up, David, is CMD project updates, which is a follow-on to our Chapter 90 road work and so forth.
Right, the last time the CM&D director was in, we had a lengthier discussion focused on the sidewalks. So I thought it would be good to revisit that and kind of close it out. And I sent you, or Ed and I worked on a memo that we sent you that showed what his proposed projects are, and broke out the dollar amounts, looking for some guidance on the sidewalks, and proposed a possible policy that would give annual guidance to bringing forward or making public what the plans are for that construction season, and try to have that posted like in April each year, so that we're not doing this at the end of the summer.
So I thank you, gentlemen, both for putting this memo together, as well as this list, Ed, of the sidewalk data and your priority listing of those sidewalks. I think that's very important to know. Three things. Before, one, I drove down Oldfield today to look at the sidewalks. Just drove by them. And there was a gentleman walking on the sidewalk as I happened to drive by, go figure. But clearly the sidewalks are nasty looking in many spots.
Yes.
And so one question is whether, or how would you let a sidewalk go to seed, if you will? is that a possibility versus maintaining them in this recommended approach? So that's just something I throw out there to consider here.
Can I help answer that?
Absolutely.
There's a legal framework which says that we're obligated to maintain all of these. The time for discussion about whether you ought to have a sidewalk there or whether it's the right sidewalk is when town meeting votes to accept it. But once town meeting has accepted it,
Yeah,
which it has in the case of all of these are all public ways,
yeah.
then there's a fixed obligation to maintain it safe for
Yeah.
its use. And I'm, as a lawyer on the board, I'm uncomfortable, and had been in the past uncomfortable, with the condition of sidewalks that we know are defective and don't comply with our obligation to maintain them.
Okay. All right, so I appreciate that input, and that helps me a lot.
I think I'd like to still see investigated how you would abandon sidewalks and reseed them. I mean, I know the town has often made changes to road configurations and other things, which means we're certainly capable of abandoning a paved portion of a right-of-way if we want to.
Yes, you have to go back to town meeting.
No, I don't think you do, Paul. You can just grass it and it'll be part of the layout, and it won't be a sidewalk anymore. It won't be a paved sidewalk anymore.
Well, so could we just look into that one last time? I mean, this is an iterative process, and I'm sorry that we're dealing with it, but it's important because we're talking about spending other people's money.
Yeah, I'm still just uncomfortable with spending money on sidewalks when we have so many other unmet needs in town in terms of road repairs.
Yeah.
Not that Ed's not trying, but it's, you know, it's a resource-constrained department, and we're diverting resources to probably one of the lowest priorities we have as a town.
Right, and that segues to item number 2 I have, which I never paid attention to, but somebody brought to my attention. The side of the roads seem to be where we have challenges, if you will. And there's a number of roads where that side of the road really starts to crumble, fall apart. And with the increasing number of bicyclists and road pedestrians and all that, that seems to me a third rail of what we ought to be dealing with in spending, if we can spend Chapter 90 monies on that. That seems to me, you know, you've got crack sealing, you've got street repairs, you've got sidewalks. Side of roads ought to be another category that we should be addressing.
All throughout Sherborn, we have a number of roadways that are former cart paths and paved over and become roadways, and they're just not wide enough to accommodate the vehicle traffic. And as you end up with 2 cars passing each other, they work their way off to the edge. And when the road was actually laid out, we have a number of soft shoulders. And that's evident in the work I've been doing down on Forest Street, was we dug out a lot of the edges of the roadways, firmed up the shoulders of where the roadway's actually failing. The number of mailboxes, you'll notice the other issue is the mailboxes are set too far back, so the postman is not allowed to leave his vehicle, so what he does is leaves the roadway. Therefore, you notice there's a rut in front of everybody's mailbox. That rut ends up expanding with the introduction of water and lack of drainage. You can eliminate a lot of that by adding curbing and drainage, but with that comes a cost. We do not have an extensive curbing and drain system here in town.
So all I'm suggesting is adding that category, however you would define it, whether it's curbing or curbing and drainage or something, as another category to explore spending Chapter 90 monies on, and prioritizing that way,
Yep.
I think is an approach to go.
Yeah, and one of the ways is to go along and excavate out on the sides of the roads and bring it up with some gravel, and it won't be paved, but it'll be a harder surface. And the perception immediately, I know here in town, is going to be that I'm widening the roadways.
Right.
But you need to kind of widen that firm roadway layout in order to allow vehicles to leave the paved area when they need to.
Okay. Elliot, you had a quick comment?
Just a quick comment on sidewalks. Sidewalks don't require that much maintenance. So I don't think much has been done on our sidewalks since they were put in 30 years ago. So if you just do it, it should be good for another 30 years. It isn't something that we're gonna have to keep coming back every year. like cutting trees.
Well, it's my understanding that prior boards, and I respect Paul's push on this and appreciate it, that, you know, setting aside $25,000 a year of the Chapter 90 monies to deal with sidewalks, that now Ed has prioritized the ones that have the most challenges, makes good sense. We just want to explore a little further, as Mike has requested, whether we can let some go to seed, as I put it. But towards the policy that you've drafted here, what it speaks to is really, I'm not and I suspect many other select people that sit in this chair in the future and in the past are not necessarily subject matter experts on roadway repair and maintenance. You guys are. And so I like the idea of this policy of an annual, plan, and for our review, maybe approval, but the nuts and bolts are resident with you guys. That makes great sense.
Right, and maybe what we do is I have some other policies that I need to bring back to you. Maybe table consideration of that specific policy, let you guys read it and provide some input to me on it, and then bring that back with the other
I do like
policies.
the underlying philosophy of what you're trying to do here. Makes good sense to me.
I do want to make a comment to respond to what Mike said. My vision of this town over time is that we need sidewalks. Sidewalks are healthy. They allow for children to move around. They allow for people to walk. They separate the traffic that's on narrow streets and let people enjoy. We want to have people less dependent upon automobiles to go everywhere. Over the course of the years, I've worked on to try and implement that vision, numerous sidewalks, not just maintaining the existing sidewalks, but I've worked and advocated for the sidewalk along Maple Street, which I still believe in, hope to see one day, to connect the Pleasant Street end with the Town Hall end, so that people can walk all the way to the Western Avenue Pheasant Field. I want to see the sidewalk along the eastern side of South Main Street, and we're working on trying to get the right-of-way for that. In part, that's a subject that'll be coming back to the board when we deal with the development that's going to take place near Woodhaven, to try and get that critical, narrow section there opened up so that we can actually do that.
That's North Main Street.
North Main Street, that
Yeah, you said
would
so.
go along in front of your house when it ultimately gets done, if it gets done all the way to Pine Hill. But that was like a $3 million project, and so we were looking at what's called a small,
Strap thing, was it?
yeah, strap
Yeah,
grant for that.
Yeah.
The engineering hasn't been done, and the overall cost, when we had it costed out informally, was over $3 million. So, I mean, there are projects that are out there to expand sidewalks. They're fairly large ticket items. But each time we brought up a sidewalk, we've heard the refrain, well, you don't maintain the sidewalks that you have. And so past boards have shared that vision that we need more sidewalks in town. We need to make this town more pedestrian friendly. And however we have acquired sidewalks in the past, we should keep them up to date and fairly safe. And it's really fairly easy. The sidewalks are fairly easy to maintain. All due respect, I see you're already starting to frown about how it affects your budget and your
No,
manpower.
no, we can maintain it. What it comes down to is the funding of the infrastructure. It's funding.
And none of this is taxpayer dollar. The vision that we have is to provide these sidewalks and to maintain these sidewalks without impacting any of the taxpayers or the town of Sherborn. All this is state money, which, by the way, we've been increasing, getting more and more of. So spending $25 a year is on top of what we were already receiving. So it's like found money that's been added to what we were used to be getting. So it was a convenient way to set that goal and go forward. We envision getting more money from the state for roadway purposes, continued getting money. And it's been all money that the state funds through, it's off budget on the state level, and it's funded in part ultimately through the gas tax and other transportation funds, rather than through the ordinary budget and tax dollars, either state or locally.
So Paul, one thing I like about what Ed has given us is that there is a priority, he's at least considered condition of the sidewalks. I'm sure you've got a similar conditions for the roads. The other dimension there, of course, is usage. And where we've got limited resources, I'd rather spend that money on whether it's a sidewalk along North Main Street or repaving a road in town that's used. You know, right now, it's dangerous on certain roads in town because the roads haven't had enough upkeep. There are a lot more people driving the roads. You know, for me to drive to Oldfield Road to walk on the sidewalk doesn't make a lot of sense. But to drive through town to get to work or to get to another place that people in town need to go, we ought to be able to say we've invested our money as wisely as possible. I just don't think putting money into subdivision sidewalks is a wise investment of money. And whether Peter happened to see a person walking on that sidewalk, there may be one a year.
That's right.
Or it may have been
He's the only
it may have been somebody
pedestrian on
Paul
that.
paid to walk on that sidewalk, I don't know. So I
Next time I know where you're going, I'm gonna hire a whole group up
You've
there.
been watching me.
So I don't disagree.
I hadn't thought of that, but that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, I don't disagree with your vision of the town. I mean, I also would just like to see the roads improved for bicycles. It's very difficult to
that's
bicycle around this town. But again, you know, paving the Oldfield Road sidewalk doesn't move us in that direction. So I am in concept agreeable with you that we ought to have more sidewalks and make it easier for people to walk and bike around town as other towns are doing. But I think we need to do that in a way that's cost-effective and practical, and I don't think that paving subdivision sidewalks that don't connect to anything is the way to do that.
Well, just to respond to one point, Ed does keep track of the roads in town and has provided you a ranking of roads with 1 being bad and 5 being good. And I see similar charts in other towns. I can say that the roads in Sherborn are in good or better shape than most
Well, this is a
towns.
sidewalk ranking. This is a sidewalk ranking right now, so I would say the sidewalks are in better shape than most, with a couple of exceptions. You know, I think your focus on building new sidewalks is probably the right way to go. That's a bigger discussion, but even $50,000 towards that is a step in the right direction.
There's nothing we could do with 50,000.
Not by itself, no.
No.
But we can add the $50,000 to other money we have and pave a road if we are inclined to do that.
But the checks come every year.
Well, I think it will come back to, once we know for certain that there's a possibility or no possibility of letting sidewalks go to seed, which I think is a good approach, because otherwise we rebuild this sidewalk, we're committing 7 years down the road to doing the darn thing again, if I understand this correctly.
But
You
this
know,
is a
and that's
decision.
the nature,
This is a decision made by town meeting, and it's usually based on a recommendation from the planning board, which required someone to build these sidewalks. And if town meeting doesn't want us to have the sidewalks,
No, I understand that, but not that I've been to all of the town meetings in town when I've lived here, but I don't recall a sidewalk as part of a decision-making process when I voted at town meeting.
Except Maple Street.
Except perhaps Maple Street, yeah.
that's because we haven't accepted any streets in town in a long time.
That's
25, 30 years.
Yeah, that's right. So, anyway, here we are, we've still got a little bit more information to discover.
So
And a
let's
revised
table that.
policy, and we'll table that. Once again, appreciate everybody's patience on that. One last comment on that,
If you
Alex?
build a new sidewalk, you've got to engineer it.
Thank you.
And the engineers get all the money, there's nothing left by the engineering fees to build a sidewalk.
Okay.
If you got an existing sidewalk, put a couple inches of hot top over it and live happily for another 30 years.
We just move the existing sidewalks to where they're needed.
Hmm?
I think the engineers were talking about in front of your house, a few curlicues and a few speed bumps.
Uh,
I'm just
Listen,
teasing, I'm just kidding.
listen,
Don't
don't you read the newspapers and watch the news? People getting shot at? Okay, this isn't funny.
All right.
This isn't funny. I lived there. I've lived through hell with bumps from the gas lines, and I'm not gonna live through it again. And, so don't even think of it. It isn't funny. Ho, 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 like hell.
All right, understood. Now we're gonna talk about liquor license, and everybody could use a quick.
Can I, before we move on,
Yes.
there was an item in my town administrator's report about giving me authorization to sign for a MassWorks grant for, that Gino Carlucci's been putting together in planning. And that grant is for the east side sidewalk on North Main Street for
Right.
engineering.
Absolutely, yes.
So,
I move to authorize,
Sure.
this is again a subject that's
So
been
you were
discussed by
gonna-
a number of
You were gonna
boards.
bring that up later, but because it's so important to this discussion.
well, yeah, you're talking about it now, and the deadline for getting the grant in is September 13th. So
I second.
And what are you asking for permission to do, David?
when we submit a grant to the state, normally I would sign it, but where this is something a little more, I haven't had a specific authorization from the board to sign them all as a
To pursue a
blanket, but
grant.
yeah,
For a sidewalk on the east side of Main Street from...
North Main Street.
North Main Street from,
I don't have the actual,
maybe Paul knows.
yeah.
Paul, from where to where?
There's a couple of options. The idea was to connect Woodhaven and that area with the downtown, but the full idea would be to connect Pine Hill
Mm-hmm.
so that it would go around the corner where there's a traffic light.
I believe this phase one was to go from Woodhaven down to Station 1, then phase 2 would be to go from Station 1 down to Pine
Grant's all
Hill.
about, or? you-
It's to put in for the engineering of it,
And it's phase 1 or phase 2?
phase 1.
Phase 1.
So what I was planning to do is work with Gino to get the grant done, submitted in time, and then we can get the completed grant out to you in your packets for that September 12th meeting. And if for some reason you decided you did not want to go ahead with it, we could still call on the 13th and withdraw it after reviewing the final
It
proposal.
doesn't commit us to anything, it's just a request for funding, right?
Right.
Always makes sense to ask for money.
Yeah,
It does.
yeah,
So he moved,
Second.
all in favor?
okay. And what I wanted to add is that since we're a community below 7,000, there are limitations on what you can use the money for, and this specifically has to go to like a public safety purpose. So that's
And you
how
make it
planning arrived at it.
Smart on the strap fund grant process that we did go through in the past, but
Okay,
we didn't get the money out of that deal.
okay.
That's worth looking into again, because it sounded great, and it's community size is a factor, maybe the same thing.
I think it's the same thing. Yeah, I'll double check
The
that.
the administration combined all of these grants into one grant
Big
package to
pool.
make it easier.
Oh,
They're called MassWorks, I think, something like that.
Yeah, Mass Works, yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah, and we didn't get it last year when they applied.
yeah. All right, well, keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can we go on to our 6:30 item?
Sure.
Consideration of one-day liquor license, and we have,
So moved. To approve.
and I would second that. This is the trustees of the Sherborn Library and Sherborn Historical Society. Is that correct, David?
I had a question about
And I have to sign these.
these events, especially the library event.
That's, in my haste last week to get my child back to college, I didn't type up the licenses. So after you approve the triathlon, I'll go down, type the licenses up, and get them, and
Do all three
sign
of
them
us have to
tonight.
sign them? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
But I have a sheet here that says a copy of. this
Right,
tab.
everything's set. It's just, there's an actual license
No, I
that
understand.
you'll sign.
Plus I signed this thing.
So
Yes, and that works fine.
So here's my question on all of these. Are these going to be open events, or are these events that are going to be adults only, how is the consumption of alcohol regulated at these events? Particularly the library, which you would think would be someplace that would attract families or...
Right, I'll have to double check on that, but I don't recall of them saying that it was an adults-only event, but,
They've hired Helping Hands caterers of Natick,
yeah.
who is experienced in handling alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, recently had a beer festival in town which went through the ringer to make sure they had the right kind of security and age carding and so forth. I think,
Right.
it's just prudent to do similar things with any of these one-day licenses.
I think this is a event to which the public is invited, because I think the board was invited. This
Right,
Board of
that's right.
Selectmen was
Understood.
invited.
Both of these events, yeah.
And it was to kind of celebrate they're in the process of raising funds to pay for a library. They've gotten a state grant. They're trying to make it as easy as possible on taxpayers by funding as much money as possible. And this sort of was an event to kind of celebrate what they were doing.
I think the difference between the Beer Fest and this is that the Beer Fest was more of an open concept. You could go up to different vendors. This is going to be one licensed bartender situation.
Right, so all I'm asking, Jeannie, is that there's a condition in here that says that somebody's going to be checking IDs on people who are
That's-
consuming alcohol. I think it's just prudent to do that.
That's state law.
Okay, so let's put the condition in the license.
Do we need to, is what you're saying, because it's
You
state law?
don't need to, it's state law. But you want to say, and they shall comply with laws applicable to state law.
Yeah,
It's not just checking IDs, you have to check for over-serving. You have to,
I think we would want to know that this was controlled in the right way. I mean, Helping Hands Caterers may be a great catering organization, or whoever does the historic one may
mean,
know
if they're-
exactly what they're doing, but I'm not.
I mean, they would have to be a licensed
Sure.
bartender from the state, but I haven't verified that they are a licensed bartender.
All right, so we ask for insurance. I think we
Right.
should ask for compliance to make sure
Right.
that we are covering all the right
So we
bases.
can make
Yes.
our approval conditional upon that with our motion and.
Usually naming the town as additional insured on,
I
we
think
have
that's
this
stated
license.
on the license itself, which we don't have in front of us. You didn't
I'm
prepare
going to
it.
type it up for you.
But I believe there's a standard form that says Town of Sherborn grants a one-day license in accordance with, and it cites all these statutes which pick up all of these things. But if you want to have specific wording that they shall check,
No, if there's a condition on the face of the license, we don't need to add the wording.
Okay, you want to table
But-
voting on this?
No,
until
I think we
Jean
should vote,
types
I
it
think we
up,
should
or-
vote on it.
Okay, we can vote on it, all right.
I think
I'll
people
make a
want-
What I want-
motion. Why don't you make a motion as you like to see it, and we'll.
David has something to say?
I just wanted to clarify, are you talking about access in, like checking IDs, access to the whole
No.
event? Or just
No,
when,
just
if somebody's at the
serving
service?
alcohol.
Yeah, okay,
It's an open public event, I understand that.
okay.
We just want to make sure if it's done on town property, it's done the right way, that's all, and done with our sanction. So we're doing the library one first?
Sounds good.
So move to approve the one-day license for the library, subject to compliance with applicable alcoholic service laws.
second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Okay.
And then the one historical society, one?
Same thing?
Same thing?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Great. All right. And Jeannie, you'll have whatever we need to sign very shortly, okay. Next up, we have Sherborn Boosters Triathlon. We have some people here from there.
Oh, yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're here looking for recruits, for athletes.
Well, you know, I'll admit, I had committed to doing this thing, but I was injured, so I'm gonna put it off another year. if I
You were
could.
You
injured.
look good, you look good.
He stubbed his toe on the way coming up the stairs.
No, it's this and that. Just ask my wife, she'll tell you.
All right, we can do teams.
I almost said somebody to go in my place, but well,
All right,
I'm committed to doing it at some point, just, this isn't it.
good deal. So my name's Bill Scatcherd. I live at 42 Brush Hill Road in Sherborn. I'm here representing the Dover Sherborn Boosters Organization as president of that organization, seeking permission from the Sherborn Selectmen to host our 9th annual triathlon at Farm Pond. This event has become our premier fundraiser every year. The format of the event is unchanged from years past. It's a sprint triathlon. The sprint idea is that it caters to a broader audience because it's not the Ironman triathlon you may have heard about, which is a lot more rigorous and requires a lot more infrastructure. This is a short swim in Farm Pond to a transition area in the Farm Pond parking lot. There's a 14-mile bike ride through the communities of Sherborn and Dover that terminates at the high school, and then a 5K 3-mile run through Donnelly Estates that ends back at the high school. We plan to use the Farm Pond facility for staging of the event on Saturday, setting up racks for our athletes, blowing off the pavement so they don't hurt their feet on the rocks, clearing out the beach, going through the various and set up things that we've done in the past. And the event will commence on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock is the official start. Athletes start arriving about 5:30. So it's a wonderful event. It brings together the community at large. The volunteers that come into this event represent student athletes from the Dover Sherborn High School. They represent many of our fellow citizens from around the community that man stations and set up the run course, set up the bike course, bring boats and people to the pond. So it's really become, you know, a focal point for our organization. And we're looking forward to host it again this year. Roughly around 300 athletes will be there, is the number that we have, and the registration is open to athletes outside of our community as well as team and individual athletes that we reserve for Dover and Sherborn as well. I'm joined today by two colleagues of mine that were involved with, Emily Hans, who's part of our lifeguard contingent and has presented some slides for you, and Jim Burns as well.
Excellent.
Can I move approval?
Well, sure, but if you guys have something to say that will help, I'd love to hear it. I think we'd love to hear it. Emily, you?
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah.
I've worked with Bill in the past on a triathlon, and tonight we both work for Emily Hans, who will be the waterfront manager this year down at the pond. Emily is one of our own, born and raised in Sherborn, is a Dover Sherborn student and is entering her senior year over at the regional school. She's not shy in the water area. She's been a swimmer all her life. She is a certified water swim instructor with AED, CPR, and first aid experience and certification. She is also one of our own. She is a Farm Pond instructor for the past few years. She's a member of the Snapper swim team since 2001, and she's also a coach this past year as well as in 2013. She's a member of the Dover Sherborn swim and dive team and has been elected co-captain. Again, she is not shy around the water, and you would not want to get in the water and compete with Emily Hans. My first experience with Emily was at the Wellesley Swim Association, WSA, who is this regional swim team that has been undefeated for the past 7 years. And I got the distinct pleasure of witnessing a rookie back in 2003 come along and get voted Rookie of the Year, and that was Emily Hans. And just a couple of years ago, she got voted the Leslie Ann Service Award, which is identifying a team member that puts team first before herself. Ladies and gentlemen, Emily Hans.
All right, Emily. Jeez.
Good evening. So the following factors will go into the waterfront safety plan to make the triathlon at the waterfront successful, and they include personnel, equipment, communications, and waterfront sectors. So for the personnel, we're going to have 10 certified lifeguards. That also includes CPR, AED, and first aid. And they're going to be from Sherborn, Dover, and Medfield. So the lifeguards will be at the pond starting at 6:45 in the morning, and they finish around 9 a.m. And very importantly, they'll all be wearing lifeguard red throughout the entire waterfront portion of it. So the certificates, lifeguard certificates, will be delivered to the Board of Selectmen by September 1st. For equipment, we're going to have lifeguard approved red tubes and ring buoys, Coast Guard approved whistles, binoculars, surfboards, a rowboat, kayaks, and a full first aid kit. So all the lifeguards will be well stocked with their equipment. For communications, we're going to have a briefing meeting at 6:30 a.m. and that's where we're going to assign positions, and we're going to have a megaphone, radios, there's a landline phone in the guard shack, and we're going to be coordinated with Sherborn's EMTs and first responders in case of emergency. So the waterfront sectors are going to be split up into 3 different sectors: the beachfront area, the start and finish line, and the turning buoys. So Sector 1, the beachfront area, that's where the 3 lifeguard towers are. There's also going to be the roaming waterfront manager, so me. So there's going to be 4 people on Sector 1. Sector 2 is the start and finish line, which will be patrolled by 2 lifeguards on surfboards and boats. And then Sector 3 is the turning buoys, and we're going to have 4 lifeguards out in Sector 3 patrolled by a rowboat and other kayaks for a total of 10. And finally, the responsibilities prior to the event. The lifeguards will be wearing red, they're going to bring a whistle, and there's no parking at the pond, only parking at the high school, and then you get shuttled over to the pond. And then all lifeguards are going to report to the lifeguard shack by 6:30 for briefing and assignments. And then after the event, everyone will deflate the race buoys and pull all the cones off the beach and clear any other equipment and bring it to the parking lot. And everyone's invited to the high school for some brunch afterwards.
Well, that sounds very carefully crafted, this plan here. Nice and safe, it's terrific.
So,
You made a motion?
can I make a motion and argue in favor of it for a minute?
Absolutely.
First, this event has gone on for a number of years. It's been very successful. This board has supported what the boosters stand for and what they've done. This board has in the past recognized that it's been a well-run event. And finally, we all should recognize that this benefits the schools and our town. We have obtained, as in the run-up to this meeting, obtained the approvals of the police chief, the CM&D director, the fire chief, the town administrator, the farm pond director, the farm pond advisory committee. So you've got about approvals from everybody in town that you can get it from.
Except yours, Paul.
Except ours. So that's why I move that we approve this as presented.
Can we have some discussion?
Absolutely.
Not about
Want to
whether,
second it? We'll discuss?
yes, but not about whether we approve it, but just the question, does this approval also cover use of the town roads for this? I would think it should. I would think that we don't have organizations using the town's roads on an organized basis without some approval.
Anytime that there's like a bike race or something that comes through town, we get these applications to approve.
Good, so but this
Authorizing
just
them.
says Farm Pond. I guess what I'm suggesting is that we amend the motion to include the bicycle and, I guess not running, but the bicycle route as well.
Yeah, there's a portion.
Okay.
Right, but that portion of it, well, yeah, it's all through Dover though, isn't it?
No, it starts in Sherborn.
Oh,
It
yeah,
runs
yeah,
from
yeah, yeah,
Farm
sorry.
Pond around.
That's
And on that note, in past years, there's been kind of a mixed success with intersection control on some of the intersections. One I was particularly attuned to was Forest Street and Farm Road, because it's a big downhill.
Yep.
And I know there were people there some years, and some years there hadn't been, but do you have a plan for making sure all the intersections have somebody? I know it's probably a staffing issue in terms of getting all people to the right locations, but.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, at the corner of Goulding and Route 27, that's one of the turning locations for the bike. And as part of the due diligence on the approval process, you notice we spoke to the Sherborn Police Department, and working through Dave Bento and team, he's very aware of that turn there, and we're going to have a designated police officer there monitoring that turn for athletes as they come out of Goulding and turn on to 27. It's a right-hand turn, because in the past, what we've done is we've put, slow down athletes, sharp right turn. We have that marking the routes, as well as we have our volunteers there asking them to slow down. And in some cases, they've kind of mistaken the 27 to be cordoned off, so there's 2 lanes of traffic, when in reality there's only 1. So we take extra precaution to make that clear to the athletes so they don't make a mistake.
Yeah, the approvals call for 2 police officers as police details, and
Yeah.
2 EMTs as part of the fire safety apparatus.
Great. Good.
So I think that was a good catch. I would amend the motion with the consent of the seconder to include the routes.
Consented, yeah.
And to make sure that, as a condition, that the police details and fire details as recommended be included with the approvals.
Good. Is there any further discussion?
What's the date of this?
September 15th. Yep, Sunday.
And one thing you didn't mention that we put in prior approvals was clean up the trash.
Yes.
You've always done it anyway, but it worked its way into our approvals over the years. So there wasn't a mess left behind somewhere with cups and things
Yeah.
like that. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And great success.
Thank you very much. Let's hope it doesn't rain.
Thank you for putting this together and doing this for the community. This is a lot of work. Good for all.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this fundraiser, just for a minute, is that this is one of those fundraisers that doesn't require our citizens as much as it does outside athletes. As you know, our citizens are paying, athletic fees at the schools, fundraising for their teams. This is one of those that brings in some outside money.
Great idea.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay, what else do we have? Signing the election warrant.
Skipping the town meeting dates.
I'm sorry, I checked that off. No. Consideration of annual town meeting dates, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there was a calendar somewhere.
Right behind it. Right behind you.
There,
We have the calendar here, Paul, attached to this form.
What did I do with
Town meeting data. And I noticed the town meeting data, two comments on the town meeting data.
I have that.
This thing here, David?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure why,
Well,
there was a
we don't
newer
have-
one.
We don't have this year's, 2013 in
No,
there.
we do. I do, but it's not on that.
It's
I
not
don't,
on that.
not sure why.
What's the population? I've always understood the population to be about 4,200. And so then I went online and checked, and the 2010 census, it was 4,119. So I have no clue where these big numbers come from, Now, I know that's coming out of the clerk's office, but it just struck me as a little odd that we were, I've always understood 4,200. No big deal.
I think the census counts people who are away at college as located where they go to college rather than at their
Residents.
residence.
Whether in the
That
residency,
could
that
be
may
explained
be an
part of it.
explanation.
But could I suggest April 29th and May 1?
I was going to suggest the same thing.
April 29th and May 1, so Tuesday and Thursday.
That's what we've been doing for the last
Yep.
couple of years. Last year, in 2013, we had 188 attend. We tried, because the year before we had 193, and we saw that town meeting attendance was falling off, so we tried a Saturday. But in part, the auditorium was taken. Do we know that the auditorium, Lindquist Common, is available?
Yeah, and I think that's why we're trying to get it done as soon as possible.
So we don't know if it's available at this point.
For those dates,
Yes.
I think they were tentatively placed on hold.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I
all
would,
sounds good. So
so
you
I would move
moved,
the 29th.
Second.
Third.
all those in favor? Yeah.
I mean,
29th
first.
is first, right?
Yeah,
the first.
29th and 1st, yeah. So Tuesday and Thursday evening.
For your records, on the front page, the participation rate for 2013 was about 6%. It was 2,970 active voters and 179 at town meeting count.
All right, can you just find out about the census versus population
Yeah, I'm going
data?
to.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious about that. And I don't want to muck up the works, but it seems to me here we had a bunch of volunteers this evening promoting their causes, and they were here. We seem to be having to deal with authorizing, I'm moving on to the next subject item. We're authorizing things for what I refer to as elected employees, but they don't come here if we have questions. I think we should establish a policy that asks that those people be present when we're dealing with something from their area. I think it's fair to the taxpayers that the folks that they pay be here to deal with things that we're volunteering to address and authorize. I don't know if that.
Which things were you?
Well, for instance, we're signing off on something that, for the town clerk here,
Gotcha,
and
yep.
she's not here to answer questions, should we have it?
Okay.
And likewise, we see things from the treasurer. So I'd just like to put that out there for us to consider next time. Maybe we don't have to have official policy, you can just be sure that folks are here,
Okay.
whether we need them or not. So what we're dealing with here, David, is what we're just being asked to sign this
This is the,
election warrant here.
yeah, normally the selectmen have to sign the warrant and get certified and posted, calling the election to be held on a certain date.
And this is the Congress representative from the 5th District, and it's going to be taking place the 15th of October, correct? 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yes.
Doesn't look like we have a lot of choice. What happens
Any
if we say
motions
no?
there? Yeah, right, right.
This, just to expand a little bit on what you just said, this is a primary.
This is a state
This is
primary.
not the final.
That's right.
So there will be another election warrant for a final in which the nominee of the different parties are cast. Here,
Also-
this is just to select the nominees of each party.
So do I hear a motion to
So moved.
seconded? All in favor? Sign away, gentlemen. Great.
And while we're on that, can I just ask,
Yes.
every other year, the last meeting in October, we do the tax hearing, tax classification hearing. And almost every year I objected to come in the last week of August to do the tax classification hearing. So here we're having a meeting the last week of August and there's no tax classification hearing.
September 12th.
Okay.
Is there a time restraint on that sort of thing? I guess.
Well, we try to be the
We
first
try to
in
be
the
the
state.
first. Okay.
And
And that
so
gets us,
this is a little later than
There was an
usual.
issue because next week there's a Rosh Hashanah. She was originally scheduled for September 5th. And so we have to bump it up, so.
okay.
And we have a very early Labor Day.
Okay, now we have consideration of an appointment to the ZBA. And,
Well, it's with great honor I move to appoint, a great privilege and great pleasure. I move to appoint Richard Novak to be an alternate to the Board of Appeals.
Second.
is there any discussion?
No, other than Rick is eminently qualified for this. I served on the planning board with him for many years, and he's served the town in other capacities over the years. He hasn't for a few years, and he's willingly stepped forward for this, and he'll be a great addition to the board.
I've also served with him, I think, on the planning board. Were you on the
I think
planning
so.
board when I was on the planning
No.
board?
He was on the planning
I
board
took your seat.
1992 to 96. He was
Uh,
on the Sherborn Housing Partnership, and he's a practicing real estate lawyer. He's got all the right stuff.
Yeah, he'll
He'll be
do well.
So all in favor? Excellent. Congrats, and thanks to Rick for stepping up. That's terrific. Okay, we have selectmen minutes of June 28th and July 11th to approve. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. We have warrant here, warrant number 8, in the amount of $433,120.69. I've reviewed it. I have a couple of minor questions. I would move to approve it, subject to David's review and approval before it gets released.
Second.
All those in favor? Great.
I thought it was okay till I see all.
No, those
Those
are
two.
simple
7
scribbling.
points. Those look intimidating.
No, it's just the way I write. It's just the way I write. No, we have, no big. Great. And then we were just talking about our next meeting, which will be the 12th instead of the 5th because of Rosh Hashanah. So hopefully that works for everybody's calendar. Right. And
Is there payroll, though, we're gonna get stuck with?
we'll have to do a warrant in the interim, a desktop review and approval of that. As we manage to do payroll. Just a little scrutiny.
Okay.
Thanks. And I will ask at some point, David, for this next meeting or one following, that we get an update of where we're at with the monthly financials, including the final version that can go onto the website from Ruth for fiscal 13. She can also give us or get an update of where we're at with the auditors and the timing of their thing, and the timing of free cash, because we know that we're on the more accelerated approach with that. We'll also get, I think we should have an agenda item maybe where you can update us of the status of the various capital items.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Rather than put you on the spot at this stage of the game. And I don't know if anybody else has anything further. You want to do your town administrator report, David?
Yeah.
Or our next meeting, did you have anything to add to the future meetings, Paul?
Yeah, we had started out some months ago going through the actions taken by town meeting to make sure that we had followed through on them. And when we went through that, we had tasked the town administrator to do a fair amount of work. It might be useful to
Have that update as well, yeah. I think
so we
that's a
know
great idea.
where we are and that
Yeah.
everything's getting done.
So you had a spreadsheet or something you put together, just
Yeah.
update and talk about that.
Right. Yeah. I had Diane run and get the capital sheet. And we had, the last time that we distributed that capital sheet, it said that traffic safety was working on something for Woodland.
Okay.
So I emailed Brad Van Brunt today, but I haven't heard back, but I'll try to get in touch
So
with him.
next meeting, we'll get a
Pick
more
up where he was
formalized discussion.
Yeah, and we'll
of those
distribute
things.
that and the town meeting articles.
That'd be great.
And I think the town administrator is also working on a reorg plan for some of the committees.
That's right.
Yes.
That would be helpful to see that, including, we were gonna recharge, I think, some committees also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you have a report of some items there? David?
Yeah,
don't want us
I have
to
a-
do your thunder.
I have a printed report for you guys to take, but I'll mention a couple of things. One was on the Pine Hill School Access Road. We're just waiting for the engineer to go in and put out the line that they laid out, mark the line, so then CM&D can go in and cut the trees. I think it's 15 feet each side of the line, but they can't just go in and cut the swath on their own. They need the original survey work to go in there and place that line down of where they put the road. So that's been the only holdup on that.
Just a question on that, is that clearing operation on the path for the road that was approved by the state legislature? Or is that some other pathway so that we're going to have to take down trees in a different location when the state gives us the funding for the actual road?
As far as I know, there's only been one road that was proposed. So, I mean, I'll check to verify.
Okay.
Anything
There's an
else?
existing cart path,
Yeah, but there's a specific roadway as Paul
and just
said.
how does this right of way line up with that original cart path that's been there ever since I can remember?
Yeah, we're on track to get $1 million to build a specifically designated road, and we needed
Right,
an act
within
of
the
the
right of
legislature
way.
to transfer it from town forest. I just want to be sure if we're going to spend the money to remove trees,
Yeah.
that it be where the road is going to go and not just some shortcut off to the side.
In the original, in the approved right of way by the legislature.
Yes, yeah.
I'm planning a public meet and greet with the new fire chief for September 4th at 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, good.
we'll get the notice up on the website. And Farm Pond also continues to be closed due to an E. coli readings. The most recent readings, the most recent 2 readings were in acceptable levels, but they do the average of 5 of the 5 most recent readings. So hopefully the sample they take tomorrow and we get back on Wednesday, we'll have an average low enough back in the acceptable range that we can reopen.
And our testing in the future is not likely to prevent the triathlon.
Call off the triad.
No.
Bacteria.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Thanks. What do I sign, just this? Should I have blue?
However you want to do it.
Everybody else has blue.
Well, come next time with a blue pen. Anything else, David, on your report?
We have the Elder Housing Committee coming in on October 3rd for an update with you guys. You know about the library trustee meeting on September 14th. They're planning a public Q&A session later in the month of October, and we're going to have the trustees come in after their event on the 14th and before their Q&A session at the end of October, sometime in between there, to brief the board and promote that other public meeting. Whitney Street Intersection Committee's posted a meeting for September 4th at 8 p.m. And
Whitney Street? Western Avenue.
Western Avenue, sorry, Western Avenue, yeah. That committee will be meeting September 4th at 8 p.m. and they're going to discuss the recent results from the staging that took place over at the intersection of Whitney and Western Ave. We did the MassWorks thing. I have the contract for you to sign. That's typically signed in open meeting. You voted in open meeting to approve town council's contract, but I have the actual contract for you to sign, so normally that's done in an open meeting too. So that's it for now.
So we'll sign that.
And then I have a list of things coming up for upcoming meetings that you mentioned,
That's in
and
here.
it'll be in here.
Okay,
Right.
good.
It is in here.
Good. So while you're giving us the contract to sign, we do have selectmen's reports. The only thing I'll report is I was in town
It's on the
the
last
day the
page.
Council on Aging had the birthday party for Bess Rowell, the lady that we signed the proclamation for. She turned 100. I don't think I've met anybody who was 100, so I came away with a souvenir from my scrapbook from this fine birthday party. And boy, if I ever get to 100 and I look as young as that lady, I'll have done well. She was terrific. And she was very happy to receive the proclamation. It meant a lot to her, so I'm glad it was one of the more rewarding things of being a selectman.
It's an intrepid napkin company that makes napkins for 100th birthday parties, isn't it?
They don't have a lot of sales. It's not their big seller. So then we're moving on to the next thing. I guess we just signed right there.
Video to executive session.
So David's giving me a script here to read so I don't blow it anymore on the executive session, so I'll just go through that. I move that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position and the chair so declares pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A and 3, and Suffolk Construction Company. Is that the right, what's this, yeah, and Suffolk Construction Company, Inc. versus Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Capital Asset Management, 449 Mass, 44, you know what all these mean, 2007, with respect to the following pending cases. Cannon et al. Versus the Town of Sherborn Zoning Board of Appeals et al., and Cannon et al. Versus the Town of Sherborn Planning Board et al., and to not return to open session. I need a second and a roll call vote. Okay, the motion is seconded by Mr. Durensis. Having a second, we will now have a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis?
Aye.
Mr. Jono?
Aye.
Mr. Caruso? Aye. Having passed by a vote of 3-0, the open session is now closed. Good night, and we are now in executive session. I have to bang the gavel. Couldn't have done that any.
Are you coming back into open session?
No.
Did you want to speak?
We can bend the rules a
I
little.
was invited to come in at 7:15, and I guess I missed the wrong time, though. It was, you took up an item that I was interested in. I wanted to just speak briefly about that, if I may.
What was the item, Judge?
It relates to the one-day liquor license that you gave to the Historical Society.
Okay.
At an event. May I do that? Or is this not right?
I move to reconsider the vote to go into,
Well, can we just delay the vote and
I move that we delay
delay going into executive session to let George,
to allow George for
30 seconds to
Yeah,
tell us?
I'm sorry, I don't want to take much time.
A second, all in favor? Great.
Thank you.
You want to take the mic so you
If I may.
promote it? And everybody can hear what you have to say?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm here representing the interest of the Sherborn Historical Society, and I understand that you took a vote earlier this evening. Thank you very much. I trust it went the way I had hoped it would go. But what I wanted you to be aware of, and others, those who are not, is that the Historical Society this year is celebrating its 100th anniversary. That's all we need. There's the 100. And in fact, I understand there are several people who are celebrating 100th birthday this year, and that the Council on Aging is recognizing that. Matter of fact, one of the events that we don't have the date set yet, but Martha Groton has been working on a display that's being placed out here for the cane, the Sherborn cane, which is presented from time to time to the eldest resident who is extant. And so we will have a talk on that at one of the drop-in centers. But more to the point with regard to this particular event, one of the things that we are having this year is an art show sponsored by the Historical Society, held on the weekend of October 4th and 5th at the Community Center. And that evening, the evening that you voted to allow the liquor license, is a party that we're having, sort of an opening event for the art show. And we certainly encourage you all to attend, but and there is a modest fee for that of $25 per person. On Saturday from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, the community center will be open to the public. The artwork that's being displayed is partially that which is owned by the Historical Society, some older pieces that it's all visual arts of various kinds, but we are encouraging local residents to participate. And there really essentially are two ways to do that. One is to get local artists who would like to exhibit their works to do so, and it's going to be a juried event, so meaning we will have some people who will be looking at the artwork to see what would be exhibited. Also, for somebody like me, who really is not an artist, but I have a number of pieces of artwork that I think would be of interest to other people to see that somehow relate to the town of Sherborn. So if you are an artist and would like to present your work, or if you're just interested in art and have something that you believe we would all be interested in seeing, we encourage you to participate. The only thing I would add is there is a website which people are welcome to look at that describes, I think, reasonably well that weekend, and that is SherbornArtShow.org. Some people, I think, have had a little difficulty finding it. They tend to go to the Town of Sherborn website, and there is a link to the Historical Society, but all it has, I think, are our bylaws. So I will speak to whoever is the appropriate person to see if there's a way to have a link, if that's appropriate, on the Town of Sherborn website that will link to SherbornArtShow.org. So that's it in a nutshell. I appreciate your taking a little extra time.
Thank you.
And hope you would come and encourage others to participate as well.
sounds like a truly historic event.
There you go. There you go.
And can we direct town administrator to put a link on to the SherbornArt.com?
SherbornArtShow.org.
SherbornArtShow.com. .org.
Dave, I'll speak with you about that.
Okay.
All right.
So we'll go
Okay.
back into executive
Yes,
session.
so now thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
So that leaves us going back to executive session. We can just walk right to it. Barbara, you think we've covered all the bases? I think we have. All right, gents. Nice job.
So he's turning that off?
We're done. Yes.